Hi guys, and welcome to this repressing video. I had asked in my Project Hourglass video if you guys were interested in seeing how I repress my products, and at least one of you did. So here is that video. And today I'm going to be repressing this powder from number 7. This is the Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Translucent Finishing Powder. I have the shade Light here. This is my favorite powder for my under eyes. It's very smooth and creamy. Normally I would not repress at this point. I would wait until, we're kind of more around the edges and then repress it all to put it back in the center, make it easier to use it up. But for the purposes of this video, I'm more than happy to repress this for you guys. So first and foremost, let's talk about what you're gonna need. First, you're gonna need something to press your product into. If you're not going to use the original packaging, I am today, but if you're not going to use the original packaging, you're gonna need something to press into, and you're going to want to clean it with alcohol. That is what I have in this little Tower 28 bottle here. It's just pure 90% alcohol, which you definitely need. I recommend the 90% over the 70% for the most part because it has less water content in it, so your products will dry faster. Some people will just mix and repress all in the same container. I prefer to take my powders out and put them into a little container so that I can break them up and do all the things with it. The other thing you need is a tissue, a paper towel, toilet tissue, whatever you want to use. I personally use Kleenex. They're pretty thin and they don't have any texture to them, so the product will repress nice and flat. In fact, I'll show you something that I pressed last night just to give you an idea of how it will look after. But I pressed this into this compact last night, and you can see it's nice and smooth because I used a Kleenex. In case you're curious what this is, may as well address it in a video, right? I took my e.l.f. Halo Glow setting powder and emptied the contents and pressed them into this compact. Reason being, this doesn't work for me really for setting anything but my under eyes. I have oily skin, so it doesn't set my face. If I do use this, I use it more like a finishing powder, and predominantly if I want to reach for a finishing powder, it's going to be one like this Hourglass one where it's pressed into the pan. And I like to use the finishing powder to kind of go over my cheek products, and so that's what I did. I wasn't for sure if it was going to work, so I did just take a small amount first. I pressed it into this little magnetic pan I have here, let it dry, investigated the consistency and everything to see if it would work, and it did. And so I went ahead and took all of it and put it in here, and now I feel like I'm going to be able to use this up and move the product out of my collection. Another thing is you're going to want some kind of a flat tool like this. Certainly you don't have to have one that's exactly like this. You could use a butter knife, you could use a small spoon. Be creative, use whatever you have laying around. You just need something that you're gonna break up the product with. So here comes the fun part, in my opinion. Nobody likes to destroy makeup unless it's on purpose, of course. So we'll just go ahead and have some satisfying footage here. And you just want to break it up and pull it away from the sides of the pan, of course. And then we're gonna empty the contents into our little bowl here. You might also want to have some paper towels on hand because you are going to want to clean your product that you're pressing into your, I should say, your container, your vessel, your component, whatever you want to call it, before you press into it, because, that's part of how we keep our makeup and our skin healthy, is by keeping things clean. So now you can see we have these big chunks, and those are not going to repress for us. So we're just going to start and work through pressing down. You can do a stirring motion. Sometimes that helps to break it up, but you're really looking to get this powder down, broken up as much as you can. But you can see I'm just kind of lightly pressing and then Once you get the big pieces broken up, you can use other ways, but you can see that the rounded part of this is working to my benefit. And just about the time you think you have it all pressed, give it a stir, because then that's going to kind of show you where some of the bigger clumps are at. Like I said, we're gonna want to clean our component here before we press into it. So this is the nice part about having it in a spray bottle. You can just spray it on and clean this baby up, because bacteria-free makeup is always the goal. Next, I'm going to take the lid off of this, but we're basically just going to put a little bit of alcohol in at a time and then start mixing it up. And the right consistency, for my opinion, or how I do things, is you want it to not be liquid, but you also don't want any of it to be dry. If it's dry, it's not going to press as well together. So you want it to, you know, all have alcohol in it, but you don't want it to be like pourable, liquidy. So you just want to add a little bit at a time. It's always better to add a little bit at a time, just like with cooking. You can always add more, but you can't take it away once you've over seasoned something, over added something. So as you can see, it's still pretty dry. I think we're gonna need a good amount of alcohol for this one. You can see it's kind of balling up here. That's normal. It's gonna start thinning out again once we have enough alcohol in there. Yes, your product is probably going to look darker as you add it, but that will go away as soon as it dries. Now that everything is moistened, you want to start being more careful with how much alcohol you add at a time, because this is where it's going to start getting more towards liquid than powder. And honestly, at this point, this would be good. All right, so and take our little pan that we're gonna work into here. At this point, if you have a small rubber spatula, that would be a great idea. I am not super concerned with losing tiny remains of my powder here, at least not until I find, you know, maybe at the dollar store or something like that, a little spatula that I want to dedicate to my makeup. I think whatever tools you use, you know, dedicate it to your makeup, or at least make sure it's well sanitized before you use it. My tools always are. I just spray them down with some alcohol and wipe them off with a paper towel. Hands are clean, of course. Anytime you're doing stuff with your makeup, make sure your hands are clean. Bacteria is the enemy of makeup and skin. And, you know, I feel like I got most of this out of here. Set that up there. Now at this point, it's all up to how OCD you are. If you want to see some really beautiful repressing, I will link Erin Taylor's highlighter palette repressing that she did recently, because her products just turned out absolutely stunning. But what I like to do at this point is just start to pat it down evenly through the pan here. Start pressing it all the way out to the edges if you have enough product to do that. If you don't, just, you know, mound it all in the center. But if you want things to be as pretty as possible, you can certainly do it this way. Another thing, some people use something that is of a similar shape and size to press down the products. I don't always feel like I need that, but I'm gonna try and find something that is of a similar shape. Okay, now is when you need your Kleenex. So first and foremost, I do one ply and I just gently pat. And as you can see, immediately the tissue will start to absorb the alcohol. And I just peel that away and go to a new section and gently press. Let's see, does this work? Yeah. Gently press with this. Fits right in the pan, that's what you want. The ultimate goal is for this to be more easily usable versus anything else. So you can see at this point, some of it's kind of, whoa, some of it's kind of moving up on the sides. I don't want that, so I'm going to take my spatula and just gently press down along the edges. I find this extremely like cathartic and therapeutic to do personally, and so I just like to take my time with it, make it look nice, but just know that if you're not that person, if you don't care what it looks like, you just want it to be usable, which is, you know, mostly the point for this, then, you know, just do whatever you are comfortable with. And then we'll just continue on. As I like to say, lather, rinse, repeat. And you're just gonna keep on doing this until you're not pulling up as much rubbing alcohol. And as you go and as you have absorbed more and more of the alcohol from the product, you can start pressing down a little heavier. I'm just taking my finger with the Kleenex on it and going around the edges and pressing down pretty hard. Well, not pretty hard, nice and firm, I should say, at this point, just so we have as little kind of spilling upwards as possible. And now I'm going to work on pressing down the center. Just keep kind of working at it until it's pressed down, you know, as firmly as you can. Use my Charlotte Tilbury here, this little piece, to kind of go around the edge of the pan and press everything down. It is always helpful if you have something like this that you can press into your pan, and you don't want to press too firmly so the, you know, product comes up, but you want to press firmly enough that, you know, you are absorbing alcohol and flattening the product. See, it's getting prettier and prettier. A couple more times and I think we'll be done. There still is some up here on the edges, but I'm gonna leave it. I think this is about as pressed as I want it to be. Put our spray bottle back together here. I'm gonna spray the paper towel a little bit and just clean around the edges. And there you go. That's pretty much all you need to do to repress. It definitely does not take this long. I just, you know, wanted to make sure you had all the information. Make sure you clean out and clean up all of your tools when you're done, so you have them nice and clean and ready for your next repressing project. I will insert clips of before, what it looks like now, and what it looks like once it's dry. But because you're using this high concentration of rubbing alcohol, you're gonna let this dry. I typically let mine dry overnight. No matter what time of day I do it, I let it dry overnight, and that's typically enough. And once it's dry, you can feel free to use your product. You can do this more than once. If I get to the point where it's all just around the edges, then I can do this again, and it will not change the formula of the product because the alcohol is evaporating completely. So there you go. I hope this was really helpful to some of you, whether you're a project planner or just a everyday consumer of makeup. This is one way that you can make sure that you get the best use out of all of your products, whether it's a powder, a blush, a bronzer, highlighter, eyeshadows even sometimes can be hard to finish up once there's just like that ring of eyeshadow around the edges. And of course, that's just done on a much smaller scale. But this is how I repress. And I hope this was helpful. And I will see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye.